I'm just now ready to start transplanting some of my tomato seedlings. I probably could have planted some of these a little bit earlier. They are for my greenhouse. We'll be planting them in the other side of this structure when they are ready to go in the ground. First thing you have to know about transplanting tomatoes is when to start transplanting them. These guys are just ready right now. They have started putting on their true leaves, which are those nice serrated leaves that they've got. Do not want to transplant them before they have these. You want to wait until the true leaves come out, because that tells you that they've started to develop a good root system and they're going to handle the transplant shock better. This tray back here will be ready in a few days, but it's not quite ready yet. They're just barely starting to put on their true leaves, and there's still quite a number of seedlings that do not have their true leaves and just have those cotyledon leaves. These eggplants here would not be ready at all. They just have their beginner leaves, their cotyledons, and not their true leaves yet at all. Transplanting tomatoes is one of my favorite things to do in the greenhouse. It's like 36 degrees outside. It's cold but sunny. It's 60 in here. It's sunny. It's beautiful. I get to put on some music. I get to sit down, hang out, and plug my plants into new soil. And it lets me dream about summer and the sweet tomato fruit that I'm gonna get. It's absolutely one of my favorite things to do all year. There's just a few things that I need for this project. The first is obviously my tomato plants. I want my container to be well watered because that's gonna make the roots come apart from each other easily. Sometimes the roots get tangled up with each other in these containers, and if the soil is nice and wet, it's easier to untangle the roots and get the plants apart while doing the least root damage possible. Next, I need plant tags and a Sharpie to make sure that I can label all my plants and not lose track of what variety is what. Second, I have to have my containers. I can use star-style containers or 3-inch pots. I use the star-style container typically for the things that I'm going to plant for myself. They save a little bit more space. I use the 3-inch pots for containers where I'm planting these plants for retail sales because they come apart individually. Also, the 3-inch containers have slightly more soil volume, and that gives a longer amount of time that the tomato plant will stay healthy in its container. So that's better for the home gardener. With the bigger pots, the plants stay healthier longer. You don't know exactly when you're gonna plant, or one rainy Saturday might push you back a week. It's better to keep them in these. In the smaller star containers, we have to be really precise about when we plant. We can't let them go too long. We have to plant once they've formed a nice root ball, but without waiting until they are overgrown and start to get unhealthy, which will affect the long-term health of the plant. Next, I need my coffee because it is still 7:30 in the morning. Then, after that, I'm going to need my soil. I use McEnroe potting soil. I think it's a really good organic potting soil. It comes with a lot of organic fertilizers and nutrients in it, and I usually don't have to fertilize much, if any, extra when I use this stuff. I will typically set up 3 or 4 trays all together because filling a bunch at once is a lot easier than filling one at a time. It's also possible to just pour the soil over if we're real careful, and we got a lot of tray filling to do. Once I've got soil, just about enough soil, now I'm just gonna pull up my sleeves and I'm just gonna move it around till it fills up all of my cells. It's real easy. It gets your hands dirty, but if you don't like getting your hands dirty, I don't know why you'd be a farmer or a gardener. Now I'm ready to actually start transplanting. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a little hole in each of these cells, either with my finger or with my Sharpie, just make a little hole in each and every one. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to scoop up a couple of plants gently out of my tray here. All right, look, I got a number of plants, 6, 7 plants right here. Real gentle. I am going to gently pull one apart and set it in our little hole here. And fill that up right there. Now, with some plants, you want to be really careful not to plant them deeper than the soil level they were already at. However, tomatoes are different. Tomatoes can be planted as deep as possible, right up to the little cotyledon leaves even. That's because tomatoes have this remarkable ability to create roots from all along their stems very easily. A lot of plants cannot do this at all, and some plants can, but not so well and not so readily. So you're going to get more transplant shock planting them deep, or you might just kill them planting them deep. Honestly, there's certain things, brassicas, if you're transplanting those, you'll just about kill if you plant them deep. Now, I want to be as gentle as possible with the roots and getting them more or less going straight down into their hole, or at least just not breaking and disturbing them any more than absolutely unavoidably necessary. Now, I'll put a little extra dirt around some of them where, they're not quite full up to the top, but I don't need to worry about having them full. We actually want the soil to settle just a little bit, because that allows there to be a water reservoir when we're watering to make sure that we're getting enough moisture into our cells. I want to make sure I make a tag that tells me what the variety is and when I transplanted it, and leave that in my tray, because it's impossible for me to tell what variety these are before they start putting on fruit. And it drives me nuts when I'm picking, when all my varieties aren't together. If I plant one variety, especially if I plant one heirloom variety, and I plant some of them on one side of the greenhouse or the field, and some of them on the other side of the greenhouse or the field, and I can't pick all of that variety together into the same box easily without trekking from place to place, drives me absolutely nuts. Some of your salad or slice or beefsteak varieties can look very similar even when they've put on fruit, and the fruit can look very similar. Labeling it now and then labeling it in the greenhouse or the field lets me do taste tests and yield comparisons between different varieties and choose the best varieties that I really want to grow the next year or the year after. The last thing I like to do when I'm transplanting is to bottom water. This isn't strictly necessary, but by putting your transplants in a tray of water, you'll make sure that the entire soil is fully saturated at the time of transplanting. This does two things. First, making sure that they're well watered after transplanting is going to help reduce transplant shock and make sure that they have enough moisture to keep growing. And if the bottom of the cells is dry, the roots won't be able to reach down all the way to the bottom and utilize all of the soil that you've given them. But one little tray turned into 7 big trays. That's about 210 tomato plants. You can see that some of them are not looking perfect. They're looking a little wilty, maybe a little sad, some of them. That's completely normal. That's transplant shock. And anytime that you monkey with the roots of a plant, it's gonna have just a little bit of trouble for a little while. These were all really thoroughly bottom watered. They'll be coming back. The fact that they look a little wilty is part of why you want to do your transplanting either early or late in the day and never on a super hot day. The heat just makes it that much harder for them to recover from the transplant shock. If you're gentle with your plants, you can eliminate some of that transplant shock or minimize some of that transplant shock. And in a few days, we're going to see these just absolutely take off and start to grow really fast. The whole process doesn't really take long once you get going on it. It's a lot of fun. You get to get your hands dirty, and you can really get through a lot of stuff pretty quickly in a morning or an afternoon. Or if you only have a few plants, once you're set up, it'll only take a few minutes. Like I said, this is one of my favorite things to do in the greenhouse. I love just sitting, putting on some music, and playing with dirt, and putting plants in, and dreaming about the summer where we're going to have all these delicious things to eat because of the work that we're putting in right now. It's a cold day outside. It's a gorgeous day in the greenhouse. I hope you all have a great day today. Take care.